goosebumps every time, yeah, 713. Through the 281, yeah, I'm riding. Why they on me? Why they on me? I'm flying, sipping low-key. I'm sipping low-key and honest, rider. I get those goosebumps every time. I'm around, cause I'm hard to make everything feel fine. Worry about those clowns.
The duties with fair and Premier. Newcastle United.
I get those goosebumps every time. I need the high, throw that to the side. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. When you're not around, we can throw that to the side. I get those goosebumps every time.
Up the mags. Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Loaded Mag NUFC, the full loaded transfer show. Wednesday night special. We don't do it very often, but we have a very special show and a special guest to bring to you tonight. But the sun's shining where I am. Great weather today. I was out for sports day where I am. Out all day. Great stuff. Watching some football. It is a dream scenario for me. But Chris, how are you, fella? How's things?
All good, mate. Yeah, busy day in work. I say that every show, don't I? But it's saying that this is the fourth show in a row, so yeah, it's still busy in work. But yeah, nice day, nice weather, and yeah, like you say, Pete, really looking forward to tonight's show. Having a good friend of the channel back on the show. It's been a while. Always a pleasure to have him on. So yeah, I've been really looking forward to tonight's show. And I've got to be honest, Pete, I was just in the middle then of the intro, you know, doing a few retweets and making sure everybody knows that the show was live. And then I seen the post from Fab Romano, and it's got me a little bit intrigued. Maybe we can ask our guest about it.
We absolutely will. We'll have this conversation. There's no doubt about it. But great to know that you're well, fella. Everyone in the chat, great to see you. Got nearly 200 in the chat already. Only 2 minutes in. And of course, thank you for watching and do that good stuff. If Sophie B's in there somewhere, not sure if she is, but if not, we've got N9, Jeannie Esther. Get those likes up nice and early, people. Let's get to 200 as quickly as we can. Thank you for tuning in. And look, we're not going to wait any longer. We're going to get the main man in because it's an absolute pleasure to welcome him back. Been a while since we've seen him. The last time we saw him, he was lifting a trophy. A lot.
Yes.
Let's welcome him in. The Geordie Journo's Newcastle World's own Liam Kennedy. How are you doing, fella?
Hi, lads. All right. It's great to be back. It's like a home from home coming back on this channel.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. You know you're always welcome on Loaded Mag NUFC. It's a pleasure to have you back, mate. So thank you for taking the time to join us, because it started once a very kind of quiet summer with not really too much happening, and you know, deals not necessarily going our way, to it absolutely sort of exploding into life in the last week. I want to get your opinions on that, but look, first and foremost, in relation to all of that, we have the news around our potential new signing, Hugo Ekitike, and we got the here we go from Fabrizio Romano the other day. We know it's in play, and even more so just recently.
Sorry, Pete. I've got to interrupt you there. You do know who you just said?
No.
What name you just said? You didn't say Anthony Elanga.
Yeah, you did.
What I said? You tell me.
You said inside info.
You said Hugo Ekitike.
Oh my God! No,
hey,
no.
I was waiting for the photo of Hugo Ekitike.
Okay, no. That's because we were talking about it before we went live. Not only have we got the here we go from Anthony Elanga, we now have a successful medical has been passed. It's been completed. All the documents, it says, has been exchanged. 55 million done, and all we're waiting for is the confirmation from the club. So, Liam, our question to you is, you know, what have you made of the summer so far, in your opinion, and of course, your thoughts on our first potential new signing, Anthony Elanga, coming through the door. What's your thoughts on that, fella?
I think it was a piece of business that Newcastle United really needed and they really had to do. Eddie Howe set out the summer closely working with Andy Howe, some part Steve Nixon, early part, little bit of Paul Mitchell, little bit of Darren Eales, but really the two Howes driving business. And they set out with a list of key targets in key areas. We know they wanted a goalkeeper. We know they were desperate for a right winger. They'd never brought a right winger in, not a first teamer anyway, to strengthen since the takeover. They were desperate to add some kind of hybrid role in the forward areas. Now, they went for two. They went big on Cunha. It didn't come off, of course, for various reasons. Manchester United, they went big on Pedro as well. Even though it was always a case of if Chelsea, they knew all the way along in that chase, if Chelsea stepped in, it would be game over because the lad wanted to go to London. There was no doubt about that at all. But they wanted that hybrid or a striker, as it may well turn out to be. Then a centre-half. I think a centre-half, they're crying out for it. And they had key targets. Trafford, Elanga, Cunha, Pedro was a bit of a, I think they wanted both, obviously one or the other. And Gay at the very start of the summer. I reported on Newcastle World last week that they'd cooled their interest in Mark Gay. Now, a lot of in the nose, sparking up fire on social media today, which tends to be the way, which I'm sure we'll come on to in later on in the show. But yeah, they cooled that interest. Pedro went elsewhere. Cunha went elsewhere very early. Trafford has been a difficult deal to do. It hasn't been an easy deal. They had that deal done last summer. Just to take all doubt out of it, that deal was done, bar the signature. Last summer, everything was agreed, and it was significantly less than what they're going to have to pay if they're going to push it through this summer. It was Eddie Howe was very disappointed to have to pull the plug on that deal last summer. And it was purely because of the PSR swindle that they had to do with Vlachodimos and Elliot Anderson and letting Yankuba Minte go. They'd already kind of agreed a contract with John Ruddy, so that was one that they honoured. And it just became too complex. I mean, we talk about how many goalkeepers Newcastle need to have. It would have been even more last summer to get Trafford in. It would have made even less sense than what it would this summer with the ability to let a few go. So, no, it had these targets. And it's been difficult watching. It's been a challenge, I think, not only as a journalist, but as a fan. As a journalist, I've known how much they've gone for certain players and how much they haven't gone for other ones. But to everyone out there, it must have been really difficult because me, with my fan hat on, has found it hard watching targets and players slip through the net.
Yeah.
Knowing that Anthony Elanga was the number one target. Don't think it was Brian Mbeumo. It wasn't. Whoever says it was Brian Mbeumo, it wasn't. It was always Anthony Elanga. Was
really?
The top target. Yes.
Okay, because we've had mixed messages on that from various different kinds of reports, and you never, as fans, we never kind of know what to believe with regard to that. But everyone seemed to have the interpretation that Brian Mbeumo was first choice and Elanga was almost kind of second choice. But you're saying he was always top choice.
Elanga was the one Eddie Howe wanted, yeah. Brian Mbeumo was one that they did. There was soundings out. They did ask about Brian Mbeumo quite early. These conversations happened initially before the end of the season. His representatives made it quite clear that it was going to be a very, very expensive deal for Newcastle United to do. They weren't yet in the Champions League at that point, and they were offered a 200. This is where the 250 grand. I think it was Martin Hardy in the Times broke the 250 grand figure, and that is my understanding as well. That was for any Champions League club, and Newcastle United at the time weren't in the Champions League or guaranteed. So they knew it would be 250 grand, and it's probably around 200 for teams outside. So he won't be on 250 grand, I don't think, at Manchester United. Of course, I don't know. We're not exactly part of the negotiations, but that was the understanding at the time, that it was 250 and then 200 for anybody outside, or if you finished outside. So he was a target. He was one that they looked at, but it was Elanga was the one. Elanga's a totally different profile of player, totally different. It's the kind of dynamic that they wanted to bring to the football club. And Mbeumo slightly changes your approach, becomes a bit more Almiron-esque in style, with a cut-in type thing, whereas Elanga is at both sides. Elanga is even, and I don't really want to tempt fate with it, but even if you did lose an Anthony Gordon, which I wouldn't rule out this summer, I want to see the triple A, as everyone seems to call it. But I'm also wary that a lot of things can happen this summer. But even if he went, he's a player that, although plays predominantly on the right, plays off the left as well. He's a type of lad that you don't know whether he's right or left-footed. Not only is he quick off the ball, but he's also quick with the ball. And I think that's a particular skill. I see that you see a lot of footballers who have to knock a ball 10 yards to chase after it. Anthony Elanga is not really like that. He's a player who's really quick with the ball. And there's a lot to be said about that as well. And we've seen he's quick on the track as well. I think for those videos, it was remarkable. I think you'd be trying to get in the next Olympics 4x1 team, I think, for Sweden with that sort of running, and put them in the relay. But no, I think they had to do this business. I've been frustrated. I can understand why everyone else has been frustrated. There's been a lot of irrational thinking. People have lost their heads a lot this summer. However, what I would say is I think it's justifiable. I think it's been a long time since Newcastle United had felt something. The fans had felt this feeling to get a signing over the line. And I know it isn't, as we timestamp this as where we are now, it isn't done at this moment, but it will be. I don't foresee any issues or problems. I think it's just a purely timing of the announcement. And it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest by the time we finish this, it already has been. So I don't know that for a fact, but it's imminent. I think they had to do the business. They had to back the manager. The manager has worked. Every day that goes by, the more that you learn about this football club and its inner workings, the more respect that I have personally for the manager and the job that he's done. I think everybody out there has been critical of Eddie Howe during his time at Newcastle United for certain games, certain performances, certain formations, certain selections, results, whatever it may be. And I stand by anybody who does that, as long as it's justified. But when you put the whole body of work in the time that he's been here, pushing against the tide a lot of the time. I mean, it's been chaos behind the scenes at times. And for him to have held it together and pulled out a season with a team consisting of, some parts of the relegation fighting team still, to have managed to have done what he did last season. Like I say, every day that goes by for me, I have more and more respect for the job that Eddie Howe's done. Is he perfect? No, he's not perfect, but he's bloody perfect for us at the minute. I can't argue anything but that, really.
Yeah, it's a great point, and I'm really glad you kind of brought it up about Eddie Howe, because I think there's a lot of fans that still sort of point the finger and question mark everything that he does. But when you look at that, as you said, that sort of body of work in terms of what he's been able to do, in particularly with what's been going on in the background, without his ability to be able to affect any of that. You got to say, fair play to him to be able to do what he did after the summer that we had last year with Paul Mitchell, with Amanda Staveley, Megad Gadusi leaving the club, players being unhappy, to be able to produce a Champions League season and a trophy, like that's kind of it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But
you mentioned that there, Pete, and that can't be underlined how disruptive that last summer was. Last summer was so disruptive. 100%. I think there's been, in my opinion, I'm not going to name names or go into any details. I think there's been some really poor appointments at Newcastle United over the course since the takeover. I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to go into detail because I'm not going to make my job even harder. But I think there's been some very poor appointments and some very poor decisions made. I could see the justification as to why Amanda and Miadad maybe were taken out of the football club. However, the football club has lost all personal touch and focus, which we kind of thought. It doesn't have a figurehead. It doesn't have a focal point. And that leads to criticism. That's seen the likes of Darren Eales, who has not stepped up to the parapet and taken the club on. And Peter Silverstone, who hasn't done the same. And plenty of other executives at the football club. The director of football, sporting director, Paul Mitchell, was probably one of the most disastrous appointments the football club has ever made. Now, I was an advocate of that at the time. But now, knowing the full story about it, realise how disruptive that appointment was. And not only to the manager, but to the players, to the team. He upset everybody in and around the football club. It was a really grim place to be around last year. Just not long after losing Amanda and losing Miadad, who did give that, they were that connect between the direction of the football club at the very top and the ownership and the money and the power. they were that human connect between for the players, for the manager, for everybody. Look, maybe they led with that heart more than the head at times, even though they're very smart people and very astute business people. But the football club misses that touch. It misses that human touch. And I think Amanda's a big miss at this football club. But it can't be understated how much of a disruptive summer and disruptive year or so that was, to lose all those key executives, to have people planted into the football club who tried to change far too much, far too soon, in a really brash and obnoxious manner. It was grim. And I've gone back over it on Geordie Journal's channel that we have a few times. I was over there with Jordan Cronin last summer, and it cannot be understated how dismayed Eddie Howe was as a person last summer. It wasn't seen by everybody. I know we took a little bit of criticism at the time because there was 3 different interviews that he did in Germany, and the one he did to us, which was not on camera, was remarkably different to anything he did in front of camera, and it showed the true feeling. And I was there, I seen it, I know how upset and dismayed he was with the decisions that are being made at that football club. So to have started the season like that and bookended it with a trophy and Champions League again, with no players, nobody bar Will Asula and the permanent signing of Lewis Hall, who was already there, obviously, is honestly beyond remarkable. And it didn't always feel like that was going to happen. It really didn't. No. I mean, I go back to December. I don't know if any of you guys were there, but Crystal Palace was one of the most abysmal performances I think I've ever seen from a black and white team. Going through all of the bad patches we've ever had, that was one of the worst I've ever seen. And it wasn't much better in the second half of Brentford, which came soon after. To then turn the season round from that moment onwards was just, I've got a huge amount of admiration for the manager, and it only grows by the day.
Chris, how many times have we said, like, what other club, you put every club in that top 10 of the Premier League, and you asked them to go 3 windows without signing a player, a first team ready player, and you ask them to produce a Champions League season, a trophy. Any of those top clubs, even you throw in your Villas, you throw in your Man Cities, like, who else is going to achieve what Eddie Howe has achieved? And we've put that out, haven't we, Chris, constantly about that point right there.
Yeah, it's mind blowing, mate. He doesn't get the credit that he deserves. I constantly have loads of arguments with my red and blue mates, and they all keep saying you need to replace Eddie Howe, you need to upgrade on Eddie Howe. Eddie Howe's not good enough. We when we did top table talk last season, we had Dan and Wolfie, didn't we? The Man United and Forest fans saying to us, "You need to upgrade on Eddie Howe." You know, we were having that little bit of a rough patch last season. It's bizarre that he doesn't get the credit he deserves, because given that he's an English manager, and English managers at the top level are quite a premium. Like, they're not. There's not that many knocking rounds. He just doesn't get the credit at all, does he? And it astounds me as well, you know, when Eddie Howe came out and said, you know, when Thomas Tuchel had been appointed, you know, England had spoken to 10 managers and he wasn't one of them. It's like, it's strange, isn't it? I don't think he gets the credit he deserves. And I think he's the right man at the helm. I really, really do. And long may that continue. And I just hope, and we've been saying this for many windows, haven't we? Probably when Liam was on, you know, Eddie Howe needs backing. He needs support. He needs players, and he needs the backing of the boards. And hopefully now we're going to start seeing that. But as Liam said at the very start, you can see why fans are disgruntled, because we've not had that. We've been starved of first team ready players, or players who are going to impact that first 11. For the past 3 windows, and so this period is long overdue. And even the Anthony Elanga deal's dragging out, isn't it? It's just like, just announce them so we can move on to the next one. No doubt we have moved on to the next one, but as fans, we want to be like, right, he's in the bag, let's go to the next one.
Absolutely, it's and that's what we're going to do next, because there are lots of links to lots of other players, and we'll throw out some discussions, and we'll bust some myths, should we say, later on.
Yeah, we could.
I like that. In that as well. But look, just before we kind of talk about like players and some of these links and myths that are going on with Newcastle this summer, you know, in your own opinion, Liam, like in your heart of hearts, how many players do you think that Newcastle United will sign? Not necessarily positions as such, or you can say positions if you feel like it. But just how many do you think we will sign, and how many do you think we need this summer to combat, like to be competitive in 4 competitions, potentially 60-game season?
I think in an ideal world, you'd probably look to sign 6. That would be my sort of number that I had at the start of the summer. Do I think they'll sign 6? I'd be surprised. You can't rule anything out. I think it's probably a number closer to 3 or 4, which isn't going to please everybody. I get that. I'd be led to believe I didn't think the budget was as big as a lot of people have made out. I've seen a lot of talk of this sort of 200 million, all this kind of thing, and it doesn't sound like it is. Look, could they be playing bluffing a little bit? I think everybody thinks they're always bluffing. They don't bluff too often. It hasn't been like they're not pulling rabbits out the hat all the time. I think people do make a little bit of a big thing about that, but they do sometimes. I think 4 is, if I had to put money on it now, I'd say 3 or 4 is what they'll probably do. I think that's too. I don't think that's enough. If you really want to compete across those different the 4 competitions, you're talking about a season that's going to stretch into 50-odd games. If you do reasonably well, Newcastle have become quite accustomed to being a cup quarter-final team in the domestic competitions, so they do tend to get to that position in the last couple of seasons under Eddie Howe, which is another sort of thing that's really taken for granted when you think of the dearth of cup quarterfinals that we had previous to that under previous managers. That Eddie Howe just takes Newcastle United into that level of the competition. I suppose some would say, as you should, with the money that they've spent and some of the players that they have. But I think 4, and I think it'll be the key positions. I think they're the ones they'll go for. Ideally, I didn't think, or was my understanding until we've seen these links today, which I'm still, having not had any confirmation, I'm still skeptical of the Ekitike stuff to an extent. It wouldn't. No. It's for the reason that it doesn't fit certain criteria unless they're bluffing. The bit that it doesn't fit is the money and the budget and what they were looking for. But I would say, good friend of the Geordie Journals, Craig Hope, was talking about Ollie Watkins and Johan Visser and these type of players, which again are the type of things, given what I've sort of learned from them this summer, again would make no sense. So maybe there has been a shift that I'm not aware of, that others may not be aware of behind the scenes, and that would make Ekitike make more sense than either of those two, in brutal honesty. The other thing would be price tag, was where it wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense. We did have, and this is part of the myth busting thing, that there's a lot talked about these players, but Liam Delap was one that they did really go for. And it was a football decision why he decided to go elsewhere. It wasn't a money thing. It wasn't a London thing. It wasn't a Chelsea thing even. It was just that he fancied getting in and getting more games ahead of Nicholas Jackson. He's not daft. Ahead of Alexander Isak. Yeah. I mean, I think one of us could get a game ahead of Nicholas Jackson at times. I don't rate him at all, if you hadn't already guessed. No, so and that was a purely football decision, but that was an out and out striker that they were going for. So it shows they're maybe not totally married to their idea of players that they need to sign in positions. I think they've shown in the past they can be quite fluid. I think if you roll the clock back 24 months, and it was a summer that has proven very difficult to truly analyse, and it was the summer of Lewis Hall, Tino Livramento, Sandro Tonali and Harvey Barnes. That summer, for what it needed to do for Newcastle United in that season, didn't work. It didn't work. The 2 fullbacks didn't really add anything to the conversation. Livramento a little bit. Sandro Tonali, of course, because of other circumstances, didn't add anything. And Harvey Barnes, partly due to injuries, didn't add a whole lot either. So I think we're kind of looking that if they went and signed the 2 fullbacks who weren't really needed, it felt at the time. It wasn't a desperate need. One of them was the left back, but maybe not the right back. But that shows, I think, if they think they can get a player who is going to be an amazing player for them for the future, they will pivot and they will move. And that's where Ekitike starts to tick boxes. Because let's not beat around the bush here.
Don't do it.
No, but you know what I'm going to say, and it is the reality, really. I would almost guess it would be a reality, is that you've almost then got a ready-made replacement in case it does.
Yeah.
Look, the mood music I've had from, we'll go there. Liverpool, there's been so much talk of Liverpool, and it started this summer with Anthony Gordon. That's where it was. And I had some really decent information at the start of the summer that if Liverpool got rid of Luis Diaz and if they got rid of Darwin Núñez, Anthony Gordon would become a very live deal. So they're kind of trying to do it. So that's what I'm saying. I wouldn't rule out these things. Then if Liverpool, fresh with that transfer money and more PSR headroom, have a look and think, could we maybe test the water, with a 120 for Newcastle United and Alexander Isak? I wouldn't rule it out. I think this could go on the rest of the summer. I would flip that round also. Again, this has shown, how much do we really know what's right and what's wrong? It could very much just be agent talk. It could very much just be Newcastle United, spark Newcastle United in to get Liverpool to get a move on and go for the player, because we know they're very interested as well. They're not the only ones. Chelsea, Arsenal have had a look. Loads of teams have had a look at him because he's a top-class operator. And where it does tick boxes is Newcastle United have, and this is one thing they definitely have, got a big track record of identifying the player ID and sticking with it and going with it. Sven Botman was probably the first real example of that they went one window, didn't get him, went back straight away and got their man. They've just done it with Anthony Elanga 12 months later, having inquired in January as well, just to see what the situation was. Could they do it 2-3 years down the line with Hugo Ekitike? It wouldn't be the biggest surprise. You could see them potentially doing it.
Yeah. It's an interesting one. There's lots of talk around Hugo Ekitike. We had the pictures here, and we had the Fabrizio Romano said, if for people that haven't seen it tonight, who might be watching now, Hugo Ekitike keeps attracting interest, and Newcastle being one of them. Multiple clubs interested in him, which is what Liam has kind of just been talking about there. Lots of noise around the fee. What I will say is that there was, I think it was a piece with Mark Douglas where he kind of set out what he thought the blueprint might be this season. And there was something that he mentioned about the potential of using additional funds that might have been in place for a later window that they might bring forward. And you've kind of almost sort of alluded to that as well, Liam, that if the right deal comes along, they might well push the boat out for a player. And we've already seen them do it for Elanga as well. So there is sort of a potential there. There's other players that would be linked with, and I think there's a couple of super chats that Chris, I think you'd spotted to throw out to Liam that might bust some myths or give us a little bit more of an understanding of what's going on with certain players.
Yeah, I'll try and whiz through these questions, Liam. I'm going to go to super chats first, obviously, but I'll try and whiz through some of these questions. And I know some of them
just tell us to shut up, man. Just tell us. I'll waffle on. If you just leave me, I'll end up talking for 2 hours, man.
A man after my own heart. Yeah. But Genius of Van thank you very much for the super chat, mate. Much appreciated. We know his thoughts. We know who he's after. Enjoy, he says, and we all remember that tweet.
Can I just ask both of you, is that an issue? Would that, if we had the money to sign Hugo Ekitike, if the price tag went down or we stumped up the money, would that be an issue with you? Because I've had 1 or 2 interactions with people today when I tweeted out about Hugo Ekitike and the potential. A lot of them reverted back to this moment here and saw it as a bit of a disgrace, and that they saw it as him turning his back on Newcastle United. Do either of you, Liam, Chris, do you feel any issue with that if we did go back in for Hugo Ekitike?
I'll answer that quick. No. He's a young lad, and he got his dream move to Palace, didn't he? And it didn't work out for him, and maybe he's ended up with his tail between his legs a little bit. I think if he could rewind the clock back, I think he probably would have come to Newcastle rather than go to PSG, because it just didn't work out for him. Ironically, how well would he be doing now under Luis Enrique if he'd gone to PSG or stayed at PSG? Because they've got a young, exciting, vibrant squad. But at the time when he went to PSG, it was full of the likes of Neymar, Messi, and he didn't get an opportunity. So it's a shame really how it's panned out for him. But no, I saw all that as a bit tongue in cheek. No, it wouldn't affect me wanting them. I'd still want them. What about you, Liam?
People have said worse. And if Newcastle United don't have any issues, which I've never thought they ever did have any issues with the lad's temperament or character, then why should we?
Yeah, exactly. The one thing I was going to say really quickly is that he went into a French lad who's being courted by the French champions, Champions League football, are waiting for him. The likes of playing with Mbappe and then Messi is always going to be a huge attraction. Now, what he didn't anticipate is going into a very toxic changing room, which is what it was. And it had to take those players getting moved out for it to end up the PSG that we're now seeing. And I think you're right, Chris. If it had stayed there and maybe seen through that moment, he would have maybe been in a different position, or maybe not. But what he did do, and what I like about that, he thought, I need to go and play football somewhere else. I need to go and continue to play football week in, week out. And he's done that. And now we're seeing what his ability is. So I think we'll be getting a completely different player with a different mentality if he was to somehow come to Newcastle United this summer. But great points, boys. Any other questions?
Yes. Yeah, mate. So we had another super chat from Tino. Thank you very much, Tino. Greetings, lads. I didn't think we'd be talking about him. I'm not a DCL fan. Getting DCL on a free, though, and moving him on like Kelly could be good business in this PSR world. Bring Amanda back. So just to kind of pinpoint that a little bit, Liam, what are your thoughts on DCL? Do you think it's a realistic opportunity? Do you think it's something Newcastle would consider? We keep hearing the rumours. He is on a free. I'm sure he wants really high wages. But what are your thoughts on DCL?
It wasn't on the table a few weeks ago when I sort of did ask the question, along with a few others, Grealish, and if some of these names that were being linked a good few weeks back, and it wasn't on the agenda back then. So unless something's changed, I don't think it's on the agenda right now. That would be my take on it. Again, it doesn't tick a whole lot of boxes, but the free transfer thing, I wouldn't be a fan of it. I'm going to be honest with you. I wouldn't be a fan of it. I want to see Newcastle move forward. I think there's a myth around, I loved Callum Wilson, being brutally honest, but I think there's a myth around replacing Callum Wilson being difficult. I think the replacing Callum Wilson of 3 years ago is almost impossible with a similar level player. Replacing the Callum Wilson who scored 1 goal in 22 games or whatever it was last season and had little to no impact, you could find 40 or 50 strikers who would do that job. So I think you've got to be realistic about it. And could Calvert-Lewin do that? Yes. But is that not setting the bar really low? I would hope Newcastle United are setting the bar a little bit higher. But however, if it happens and he comes in and he's willing to knuckle down and get stuck in, I don't think that one will happen. That's my opinion. It could, but it didn't sound like it was a few weeks ago. And I haven't freshly checked on it because I'm skeptical again of these recent rumours.
Yeah. And on that note, perfect timing because DCL's biggest fan has just arrived. I was just about to say exactly
Don't tell me we signed Calvert-Lewin. I'm going again.
Howe!
Sorry, boys. Sorry, chatters. I'm just coming straight from the GAA pitch at under-9s football training where I had a standing goal, so I'm sweating. Even Mr. Miyagi, I'm still sweating. But how are you, Liam?
All good, mate. All good. We're just deep in the depths of some transfer chat at the moment.
Not so bad.
Yeah.
Right place. Yeah. So I even copied Pete tonight.
I was going to say, what's going on here? But you'll be pleased to know, Daz, Liam doesn't believe that Dominic Calvert-Lewin will be coming to Newcastle United this summer. And I have to say, Liam, like I'm really glad you said that about the Callum Wilson replacing situation, because there's so many people out there that whenever a striker is linked with Newcastle United, it's no, he's not going to come. He's not going to want to play second fiddle. There's so many teams out there that have got more than one good striker. Like, we're not saying that we're going to sign another Isaac level. We're not saying we're going to sign another, like I said, Callum Wilson level that scored 18 goals 2 years ago. But someone that can come in and get double figures and add to what we've got, like, that is more than doable. And there will be players out there that will want to come and play for Newcastle United with that potential to be able to do that. Now, like just while we're on that conversation around strikers, I'll just throw a couple of names up, and you touched on them earlier, Liam. These two in particular, Johan Wieser at Brentford, Ollie Watkins, you mentioned, good friend of your channel, Geordie Journos, had talked about Craig Hope, the potential and the interest of Newcastle looking at those two. In your opinion, do you think they're a bit of a smokescreen, or do you think there could be some genuine interest in either one of those two players?
I do know that they do like Visser. I think that's a very expensive deal to do at the age that he's at. And I do think his old manager wants to take him as well. So I think that's possibly a non-starter in some respects. But look, in pure ability, it's one that I've been championing for ages on the Geordie Journals. And if you're to look at when we're talking about Mbeumo towards the end of the season, I said on one of the videos, if you were to look at that front three, you'd take the other two ahead of Mbeumo the way that they were playing. And I think Visser's so versatile, such a good player. He'd be a class player for somebody. I'm just not sure it'll be Newcastle United. And I just can't see the Ollie Watkins one unless there's something that you scratch the surface with Aston Villa and there's something we don't know or we're not finding out. Then I just don't see. I could see another club prizing him away. I just couldn't see Newcastle United prizing him away. That would be my thought on it. We talked about the balance and the idea of second striker to Alexander Isak. I do think it's a challenging position. I don't think it's easy. I don't think you're ever going to get a top player, but it depends on the sell and it depends on how you sell it to the player. It depends on how many games. I think Alexander Isak, by playing less games next season, if they can get somebody to fill in, becomes a 30-goal-a-season striker. And I know that sounds sort of counterproductive, but I think the less games he plays, he'll score more goals because he was washed out, Alexander Isak, at the end of the season, wasn't he? And if he was allowed to sort of have that freshening up games, freshening up weeks where he wasn't having to go and, bang into the turf. I know he scored a hat-trick at Ipswich and he wasn't having to go again and again and again with European games. I think signing a striker is so key. It's probably, we had this big debate on the channel yesterday and I think we all kind of said centre-half was probably the biggest priority next, simply because that is creaking with 30-odd-year-old centre-halves. And there's the way that Newcastle United play, which is basically tracking man for man a lot of the time with defenders being pulled all over the place. We've seen what very good teams who are set up very well can do to you. Aston Villa did it. Manchester City did it. Newcastle probably need a little bit more recovery pace, a little bit more mobility in that department. But beyond that, it's a striker. You've got to go and get a striker. Okay,
so let's just hold that thought there because you've just talked about defenders. So we'll throw some names at you. Myth bust if you need to. Talk to us about your own opinions on that and maybe anything So, look, we've had a long-standing interest in Mark Gay. You touched on it at the beginning of the show, the rumour mill around Mark Gay jumping out again today. Craig Hope had reported on Leo Balerdi, of Olympique Marseille. And we've had the links with Giorgio Scalvini of Atalanta. In your opinion, are there any myths to bust there between those three? Are there any genuine interest? And do you think either one of those players could be one of the targets for Newcastle United?
There's been some debate around this when you speak to certain people, certain others, the Mark Gay situation. It's my understanding that he was still top of the list at the start of the summer. And that's become, as the summer's gone on, they've totally moved away from that. Now, that doesn't mean they can't revisit it. Like I said, they've shown in the past that they can. They do identify players, and if there's a chance to go back for them, and if they think the deal's right, they'll do it. So it wouldn't be the biggest surprise, like we mentioned with Ekitike and others, that if they haven't done that talent ID, they go back on it. But it was my understanding with Gay that he's no longer top priority in that department. The other one, Balerdi, that I've only heard minor things on him. I'm not sure how far that one goes, but it could happen. The third one, Scalvini, is a really intriguing one. So Scalvini, they really, really love as a player. Like he is top draw. They really rate him. But there's certain things around. I think he had a very, very similar injury to Sven Botman, and I don't think the recovery. I don't think he's been great after the recovery. So I think they have some concerns not only about the recovery itself and the injury and how he hasn't really been able to shake problems beyond that, but also just his general play. Like, has he lost a bit of what he was prior to that? And there seems to be some suggestions that he is. And I think there's been a little bit of that potentially with Sven Botman as well. And do you really want to play two of those together, who maybe have got those concerns and issues and lacking a yard of pace? I just think there's enough question marks about the Scalvini one for me that I've heard to suggest that that's not one they'll try and do. But like I say, they do love him. They really love him as a player. And I think he is a top player. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm a Serie A expert. But all the reports I've heard back from people who know a lot more about these things than me suggest he's top draw. But there are question marks. He's not the player he was before he got injured yet, or he hasn't proven that he's still the player he was before injury yet. And I think that leaves enough question marks. I also hear Atlanta are reluctant sellers, but this constant touting of the name suggests maybe that they are pushing the market out to see what's out there and what they could maybe get for him. So it's an intriguing one. But of the three, the one they like the most is Scalvini. But I don't necessarily... I've heard enough question marks to think that they wouldn't progress that deal, even though you hear a lot of noise about it.
Interesting. I know we've only got a few minutes sort of left with you. Boys, I don't know if you've got any questions in the chat or any questions you want to fire at Liam before we have to let him go.
Taz, do you want to come in then, mate? Did you have something?
Just because I don't know what you've talked about already, I think I'm going to go left field and go with something totally different. So I'm going to go, Liam, what's happening with the stadium now? When do you think we'll hear something more about the announcement? And then
honestly, how long is a piece of string, mate? Honestly, it's remarkably frustrating. Sorry to slightly go off on a tangent. I think the more frustrating part about the football club's development in the 4 years the PIF have been is the training ground. There was no tangible training ground. When we live in one of the most sparsely populated areas potentially in the UK, it would take no problem finding a reasonably well-connected, reasonably sizable location in Northumberland or in and around the outskirts of the city to have built a training ground, sourced and built a training ground. I think that's really quite poor from PIF and the owners so far. And I also think that's the same with the stadium. I think it's a poor show, leaving fans hanging like this, genuinely. There was the football club, I don't know if you've heard this before, but it was about 3 weeks ago. The football club was literally primed for some kind of announcement. And that's fact. People had been briefed there was going to be an announcement, and there wasn't an announcement. I don't know why that got pulled, why anything got changed. And it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest that the next announcement you hear from Newcastle United is a kick the can down the road announcement. And it's another one of the ones that we've seen recently where it's like, oh, it'll be before then, and it's another one. Look, I hope I'm wrong. And I've heard about all of the plans, talked to a lot of people about it. What they had put in place, which I don't know still stands. I don't know what they've done and what they've changed or altered. But what they planned was excellent. It looked excellent. With the Wembley Way walkway through St James's Park and all the way up to Leazes Park, and all of the kind of it was well documented in the Daily Mail by Craig Hope again to mention another one of his stories about the wraparound and all that kind of thing, and the 65,000 seater and all that kind of thing, whether you think that's big enough or not. It's frustrating. I think there needs to be something tangible, and that's probably, I don't want to sound like a really negative kind of a negative Nancy coming on here, but I'm frustrated as anybody. If PIF walked away tomorrow, because of their actions, there is nothing tangible. There's nothing from what they've done tangible left at Newcastle United. You say, but you've got a trophy. Yes, there is a trophy there, but that's down to the manager and the players. I don't see a whole lot of that. What were you going to do? You were going to build a training ground. You were going to bring infrastructure around the city. You were going to help with loads of things like a Man City style project. You were going to build a brand new training ground, all that kind of thing, stadium, the whole lot. And what have we seen in 4 years? Nothing. They came in to the football club and they cleaned the windows, and everybody screamed and shouted about it. Everyone went mental, and they put a lick of paint on the front of the stadium, right? They've never done it since. They've never done it since. It's scruffy again. They literally, the windows at the Gallagher that were lovely and clean, which they did. No wonder they're dirty again, because it's been years since they've cleaned them last. It's like what is going to happen? Where's the progress? Like, it's what I see the takeover so far. And I'm not critical of it, because I've been one of the happiest people covering this football club and supporting this football club over the last few years. It's been brilliant. But if you look at really what the success has been, they've scored a lot of open goals. There's certain sponsorship things were open goals. They haven't really brought any major investment or major progress to the football club. And I think that's it's always a caveat in my mind that even when I'm so happy, there's an asterisk there that if they walked away tomorrow, where's the boots on the ground? Where's everything? The spades in the ground. Sorry, where's it? Nothing. There's nothing to show for it apart from a bigger wage bill and a Carabao Cup trophy. That is it. For everything that's gone on, it hasn't yet been as transformative as I'd hoped it would have been. That's what I've got to be honest, because I always think we all sitting on this call are Newcastle United fans for life. So long after these owners are gone and all of these footballers that they pay a lot of money to are gone, our football club's still going to be standing there or slightly further up, hopefully, in Leazes Park, and it's still going to be there. And you want something that's going to last. You don't want a football club to be built on sand, and that's my hope. If I was to say what comes next, my hope for this football club is that it goes from that sort of sandy foundations to something really solid. It's getting better. It's a stronger football club than it was when they took over. It's got better players. It's got a better outlook. And I don't doubt their intentions as well. They want the football club to keep improving and getting better. And that's great, considering how bad it was before. But I also want to see something real. I want to see something I can put me hands on and say, look, this is what they built and this is ours now, which I don't think we have at the moment. Sorry, that was a long-winded answer on something very short.
It's something we spoke about there.
How I feel.
That's something we spoke about about 2 weeks ago as well. We just want just a reminder of their intention that they are here for the long term, not to sell us again and make a profit from us, because they have brought us from one level to a totally different level. But going a step further is another marker.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So imagine a new owner walked into the football club now and they did flip Newcastle on for double the price, or even more, 2.5 times the price that they paid. They flip it on. Does a new owner come in with a lot of work to do? I'd say so. I'd say a new owner comes into the football club with a hell of a lot of work to do.
That's true.
And you've got to look at it like that. Does that mean the PIF have maybe been sleeping a little bit on what's going on? I think so. And when we talk about them being in for the long term, I've never heard anything to suggest that they aren't in it for the long term. But how long term is long term? I think if you'd said everybody on the day that we all celebrated when it actually happened, the takeover, and that maybe that first week, if you'd have said you'd be sitting here, if you'd said you'd be sitting here in July 2025 with a trophy already, we literally would have snapped your hands off. So it's not about the success of the team and the football, but it's more about where would you be as a football club? I think a lot of us probably would have went, oh, it'd be nice to have a new or build. Probably mostly would have said, extend St James's Park or do something, buy the land back, whatever, build a new training ground, really become a modern top-end football club like we know the football club always has been, just never shows it. None of that's really happened. We've had a bit of a fan zone added on the back end of the Gallagher, and that's kind of about it, which is great, and it's a great experience, and it's amazing, but it's not enough for me. I think we need more as a fan base.
Yeah, it blows away. It guarantees the short, long-term future of the ownership, because the ownership are not going to sign off a new stadium and then not be here to see it through. And if it is going to be, say, for example, a 5-year process, for at least that period of time, and maybe a year or two after that, you're going to be seeing the ownership be there and be part of that process. And so we need that almost as a confirmation. And we talked about it, Daz, you talked about it. That's what you're waiting for from in your mindset, that confirmation that they are here for that long term, and that's where we get that guarantee, because that's the only way you're going to end these talks. You still see it on social media. People are saying, you know, are they here? Do they really care about Newcastle? Are we really the priority? Well, that shows it in that moment.
And the goalposts have kind of changed them as well, where they've gone crazy in the Saudi League. They've got the World Cup now as well, and and they're blocked by PSR restrictions, which, you know, when they came first, didn't think it was going to be that bad either. So, it does look like they're kind of weighing up options, but may not be the case at all. It's just that things are behind the scenes have to be settled before we all hear about it.
So on that one, I think a lot of that, trying to understand that, comes from the idea you have to sort of divorce yourself from being a Newcastle United fan and look at it with a real cold, you know, set of eyes. Just look at it and think, right, what moves are they making? They're trying to get soft power in football. There's absolutely no doubt about it. They've seen the impact that PSG have had on world football and getting seats at the very top table, influencing, getting World Cups, getting all kinds of things that are going on. Make no doubt about it, PIF are funding the Club World Cup, and with focus on being a real power player, FIFA, UEFA, wherever it is, and really having a soft power control over football. The collateral damage of that is that it also funds Chelsea spending sprees that can then outspend Newcastle United and, you know, the football clubs, which, let's be brutally honest about this, whatever pipe dream they might have about the Saudi League, it ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen. Look, of the Arab nations, they are the footballing Arab nation. There is no doubt about it. But let's be honest about this. It is not going to become, they can throw all the money in the world at it. It's never going to become what they would hope it could become to challenge anywhere else. But that's the collateral damage to that, is they're going to keep trying to sign players that strengthen their league. And Newcastle United, the level of players that they would target are the level, and the only ones Newcastle United have in that bracket, really, let's be honest about it, are ones that we wouldn't let go. So you don't want them coming along and spending 150 million on Alexander Isak. Not that he would go there, but you don't want them coming along and offering 100 million for Bruno Guimaraes. You don't want any of that kind of thing going on. So I think it's a double-edged sword. I think we've just got to ride with it. As long as they're good, responsible owners and deliver on the promises that have been made so far. And I think they will. I'm not doubting they will. I just think it's possibly going to take a lot longer than all of us maybe hoped in those sort of early days, I think.
Yeah.
I know we're short on time, Liam. Do you need to go now, or are you okay?
Yeah, I will have to shoot off in a couple of minutes if that's all right.
Okay, quick. So literally 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Let's do a quick fire.
Yeah.
Group questions.
I was going to say, I've got a few names I just want to throw at you, Liam, and just give a little short response. So Jay asks about Malik Chow. Obviously, he's been linked with a move to Como. He's apparently rejected that move. Is that someone? Would you include him in one of those possible centre backs, or do you think that he's a deal we won't revisit because we know there's been interest previously?
I think I don't know anything on this one. I'll be honest. I haven't checked on him because he's not really somebody to be mentioned to us, which kind of tells its own story. And I do suspect if they'd wanted to sign him by now, they probably would have done it. I think it possibly also tells a story that AC Milan have been trying to shift him on for a year and a half, which probably tells you the level of the player. Now, again, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a Serie A expert. The lad might be amazing, but I just think there's certain, you're going to say red flags with it. I would say maybe amber flags. I think if they wanted to do that deal, they would have done it by now, such as the price and the availability.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Kieran Byrne asks Liam, we've heard the rumours about a third bid going in for Sean Longstaff, 10 million plus 2 million in add-ons. Apparently that's been rejected this afternoon. How much do you think Newcastle will release Sean Longstaff for? And do you think that we should be accepting a price around that figure, or do you think we should be trying to keep a bit more out of Leeds?
So on replacement, I didn't really think it was a massive. I don't think it's a huge priority position, or it hasn't been. But should they let go either one of Willock or Longstaff go, it becomes a little bit of a priority position. Longstaff, I think it's a good price. I don't think it's a bad price. I think it's an okay. I think it's a par price. You're not getting more money than he's worth. You're not getting less than he's worth. I think it's around about what you should probably look to accept. Let's be brutally honest about this. I don't think Eddie Howe wants to lose him. I don't think he does. But I think the player has really cut an unhappy figure, I think, for probably the last 12 months. I think a lot of the criticism, I think it's got under his skin, and he just hasn't come across as a very happy person in the interactions I've had with him over the last 12 months, and a few others as well, which is sad because channels like mine, ours, we've never criticised, we've always stood by him, and I think it has got him a bit, which is sad, like I say, but I don't know. I think he'll probably go because he wants to go.
Do you think it's because do you think his mentality or his sort of mannerisms, emotions have been because he kind of knew the writing was on the wall, that he knew his time at Newcastle was maybe coming to an end?
There could be a bit of that, yeah. Because I mean, really, let's be realistic about it. He couldn't get much game time last season. It's not going to get any better for him, is it? It's realistically not going to get better because, you know, if they signed another one, for example, he just falls further down the pecking order. He might get more game time because of the increased games, but again, let's be realistic about this. I think Sean Longstaff was a perfect Eddie Howe player. I think he's a proper system man, is what I would call him. Jacob Murphy fits into this as well. That he's got it between the lugs. He's not a daft lad. He's smart. He was probably one of the first to really front to back learn the Eddie Howe playbook and carry it out to a T on the pitch. And managers love that. Absolutely love it. That's why Rafa Benitez would never say a bad word about Jose Perez, because he knew he was a smart bloke. And if he told him, you do X, Y, and Z today, you'll do it. Sean Longstaff's the same. You carry out this role and this job, do it. But other players are there to do other jobs around him. Where Sean Longstaff took the criticism is Newcastle fans can probably see he isn't of the level of the other players around him, that he doesn't maybe have that quality. I think it's a shame, because I think you probably look back and I think he could have scored more goals at Newcastle United, because I think he's a player who's got a bit of quality and he'd be a decent signing for somebody. I think something happens there. But I don't think Eddie Howe wants it to. Sorry, that was the longest short answer.
No, honestly, mate. No, I've got two more for you, and this one will be a nice quick one. And we were discussing this last night, Liam. For you, will Isak take the number 9, or do you believe that he will stay in number 14?
I haven't had any information on this, but I'm just going off what I feel. I think he will.
You think he'll take it?
If he stays, he'll take it.
Possibly on a new contract.
So he's taking it then. He's staying. He's taking it.
Saying there's a chance.
Yeah, they definitely don't want it. I think if he stays, he'll take it. I think. Yeah. Honestly, I'm tying myself in knots here. I think if he stays, he'll take it. I think.
Well, the last question is going to make you feel even more awkward, Liam, and I do apologise for this. But Ivu says, Liam, give us a Loaded Mag exclusive, lad.
I know, I see this earlier.
And then Gene Esther follows it up, and he goes, "You mentioned that the club are looking at 2 players who haven't been mentioned yet.
Yes.
Are you able to elaborate on that, Liam?" Now, obviously, we know you're not gonna come on Loaded Mag and say, "Oh my God, after this and this," but even an indication on maybe position or anything before you go.
Look, what I would say on this one.
Who's done it?
No pressure, Liam. No pressure.
What I would say on this one is the way it works is, I'll be brutally honest with you. If I had the names, I would have written it. I wouldn't choose to write just that. If I'd had the names, I would write it. But I was led to believe that there was 2 deals, and I think they were both on the continent, that they were right at the top end of, as in like they really felt had a very good chance of doing those deals. Now, it's one of probably the myths of the transfer window is like, I think everybody looks at it like tunnel vision. So they're going, right, we've just completed Elanga. Now we're going to try and do Trafford. Now we're going to try and... There's literally plates spinning everywhere. So you can't see it. They're already looking at the next player down the line. It's the same with all football clubs. They're already looking at the next one and the next one and the next one. If somebody turns them down or somebody beats them to the punch or whatever it may be. But they felt they're in a really good position on a couple of deals. So I've got to take their word for it. It's not on me if it falls down.
That's it now, Liam.
The initials. Give us the initials, Liam. We'll figure it out from there.
I couldn't possibly.
Liam, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, mate. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Look, we if we're in a bar somewhere in Newcastle, we'd probably come and continue this conversation over numerous pints over a few more hours, and hopefully we get to do that. We would have extracted it out at some point. But look, tell everyone where you can find you, mate, before you head off.
Yeah, so check out Geordie Journos on YouTube. We're trying to do a couple of videos a week. We always have a big one on a Saturday. So the next video comes out will be Saturday. We always go out at 9 a.m. on a Saturday. So people seem to like that. So that'll be our next big Saturday transfer spectacular. You can also find all of my work and Jordan Cronin, who's one of the Geordie Journos at NewcastleWorld.com. That's all of our work goes. And before I leave, I do want to just say, look, yous are absolutely amazing. The best live channel on you, best live Newcastle United YouTube channel, without doubt.
Cheers,
hence why I'm here.
Top man. Thank you so much.
Top man.
Thanks, Liam.
Legend.
Cheers,
Right.
guys.
You take care, man. Have a good
Take care,
evening.
Liam.
We'll speak to you soon.
See ya.
Legend. See you later.
See you,
mate.
Liam.
See you, mate.
Did you take yourself out then, Daz?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I switched the tab and it kicks the person in the bottom off because it happens to Chris before as well. When you switch the tab.
Oh, okay.
Thought that was going as well.
Yeah, I was going to say what's going on.
I'm off. Don't want to talk to you guys.
Liam's off here.
Liam, top guy, top guest, love him. Liam, Jordan, Dom, part of the Loaded family. They're a big part of the reason why we're here. There's been lots of others that you know we're massively appreciative of over the course of the years that have come and joined us on this channel as guests, but those three are a big reason of why we are where we are. Absolutely. So huge thanks to Liam and the Geordie Journos. No doubt we'll see Jordan and Dom on here as well, because they know they're always welcome, and we'll continue the conversation. Look, we've got 450 in the chat.
We should
get those likes, people. Get them up right now, because you know we've got 117 Genius in there. 117. We've got 450 in the chat. Come on, that does not make sense, people. Not make sense. Get those likes up right now, or Sophie will be after you, and Jeannie Esther, and Tom, and the rest of them, all the other mods who we appreciate as well. Sorry, Chris, what were we saying?
No, mate, I was just going to say we should try and do a summer series of Geordie Journos, shouldn't we? Now we've got a target. We've got to target Dom, and we've got to target Jordan. It'd be great to have them on during the summer. It'd be lovely.
Yeah.
It can happen. It can happen. Absolutely. We can make it happen on Loaded Mag NUFC, because this channel can be the gift that keeps on giving. We have some of the best guests that talk all things transfers on this show, on this channel. And this is absolutely the place to be. And for people that are watching, if you're not normally watching the channel, if you're new to the channel, click that notification bell, because we will do a show just like that. If we think we need to have a conversation about something Newcastle United related, we will be there, and you will want to know when that show is, and that notification will allow you to do that. Absolutely. Didn't get a chance to say it, Dad. How are you, fella? How are you? Are you okay?
Oh, grand. Yeah. Still sweaty after playing goal. I was Jordan Cronin-esque in goal, actually, boys. You never know. I might have to challenge him yet for that number one slot next time we take to the field.
Would you put yourself again?
No.
Would you put yourself ahead of Gillespie and Ruddy in your performance?
No, Jordan's here. I'm here. Oh, can you see my hands? Yeah. I'm well below Jordan.
What about in comparison to Gillespie and Ruddy? Would you?
Well, I'm ahead of Ruddy anyway. That's the start. And Gillespie, does he still own a pair of gloves? I don't think so.
Yeah. But
Trafford is the benchmark.
Yeah,
absolutely. And Ibu, apologies if we didn't get to ask your question, but don't worry, because there could potentially be a guest at some point this week that you may well want to ask that question too. So keep that question tight, keep that close to your chest, and make sure you get it in the chat for our next show, because that is also has the potential to be an absolute whopper of a show as well. Another big guest lined up, ready to discuss. Sorry, Daz and Chris.
Do we want to tell the viewers that are sticking with us to the end there now?
The very end.
Not yet.
Very end.
Not
yet.
Very end.
I'm just, you know what? Let me just drop them there. Let me see.
Drop him a message there.
Okay.
Or her.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see.
Right. Okay. Look at while you're doing that, Pete. I'm just going to give a shout out to because since I'm modeling the hat, the loaded hat. Oh, there. It's a bit big, that one. But yeah, go to the shop, the loaded shop on linked from our description or from the YouTube page. You can find all our links, and you get a range of stuff. You're probably not going to need the hoodie in this weather, but plenty of t-shirts of various different types on available there in the store. So check them out at your leisure at some point.
What talking points do we need to get through? Because I'm mindful we asked Liam a lot about some of the topics of conversation. I'm just going to switch the tab over. Oh no, I can't now. If someone else can switch the tab over, because it's got us stuck. No, it does it all at the time.
Is that it, Pete?
No. I switched.
Did you switch it? Sorry, though.
No, I can't.
Oh, no, you can't. Right, okay, hang on.
You're the only one. You're the one that can.
I've got the power.
Absolutely. There was interesting conversation about centre backs, for example. Talked on a number of them. There was a little bit of an update. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, read that. Yeah, I was going to say to you, Ivu did get his question answered. He was thanking us. Thank you.
I know he was, but then I kind of like shifted very quickly to those that we didn't get to ask. So I know we asked you a question. Thank you for putting it in, and thank you for all the others. I think there were 17 or 18 of them that we didn't get to ask, and it was for them really to put their questions in potentially for our guest tomorrow. I've just sent a message, so. Let's see.
He's off again. He's off again.
That's still ones, Tom.
Come on, Tom.
You need to get that tattoo, Tom. Come on, man. You promised us way back in March. You promised us. You got to come through with it. But your opinions, lads, on this one. A little bit of an update. There was all this fanfare with regards to Mark Gay and planes. I saw the planes coming back in the loaded chat today, and I was like, "Oh my god, we're back!"
That was for your benefit, Pete. You know,
I know it was, and I didn't get a chance to look at things very often on my phone because I was out and about with Sports Day today. But I did see the planes. I was like, "Oh, hey, what's going on here?" But Mark Gay. There's a team talk sort of exclusive. They believe they can sign Mark Gay. What are your thoughts on this and the noise that's been coming out today? Is it just kind of fabricated noise, generated noise, or is there some substance to it in your opinion, Daz?
Yeah, well, we know the plane when it was fabricated because it was going to a different. It was the same airport, but a different club, but and a different player, of course. But yeah, look, we're still potentially in the mix for him. Yeah, look, I'm sure things have been thrown up in the air a bit with Liverpool now as well, understandably so, with everything that's gone on there the last week and a half or so. But so yeah, I don't know. I'd say we're looking elsewhere, but keeping options open. I think for Palace they have to deal because they'd be crazy to let him run down his contract and let him walk out for free. So. It's if they can get a deal done, they should do it.
Fingers crossed. We get that centre back in. I think we're going to be moving quickly with the next deals when Elanga is done, or as Hugo Ekitike is what I called him apparently right at the beginning of the show.
That was so funny that you're going to have to watch that back after. It was very because Liam done this face, and I was looking thinking that. He defo said Hugo Ekitike there. And then I like played it back in my head and I was like, he defo said Hugo Ekitike, but it was because we were literally talking about him. But yeah. So I'm hoping that's a sign, Pete. I'm hoping that is a sign.
I had no idea that I even said Hugo. It was only because we were talking about it before we went live that I would have said that. I had no idea on that. But look, we didn't get to ask Liam this Mythbuster, but this keeps coming up. Jack Grealish. it ain't happening, surely, boys. This is not happening, is it?
He did briefly touch on Jack Grealish. I think when he was talking about deals that you just can't see happening. People in the chat tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure he name dropped Jack Grealish and was like, those kind of deals just won't happen. For me, mate, no, I just don't see it happening. I really, really don't. I do believe, though, touching slightly back on Mark Gahey there, deals like Mark Gahey, I do think will go right into the wire, because Daz is right. They can't not sell Mark Gahey this window. They can't let him run his contract down. And I do believe, and Liam alluded to it, there's going to be plates spinning everywhere. And when a deal's right, it will happen. And I'm not just talking about Newcastle. I'm talking about many different clubs. I think there'll be loads of conversations going on, and I think clubs will just press ahead and go and get the deal done when the time is right. But there will be, different things that are maybe holding it up, or they're waiting for, other things to fall into place. But yeah, I don't see. Ironically, Pete, and I was talking to somebody about this morning. I could see Jack Grealish going somewhere like Everton. Now, people may say I'm mad saying that, but I don't see Man City selling him on a permanent basis. I know they want to, but I just don't see anyone putting the money down for them, mate. And I think it will get to the end of the transfer window, and someone like Everton will come over really cheeky and go, "Oh, can we have Jack Grealish on loan?" And Man City just go, "Sam, just give us like 40% of his wages. Yeah, go ahead, just get the deal done." And Everton would be delighted with someone like Jack Grealish. I don't see any of the other top 6, top 8 clubs going for Jack Grealish. Don't see it. I think he'll go. I think he'll go on loan to somewhere where you least suspect him to go, because City just won't want to keep him in the squad. And I think that's what it'll be.
I don't think it's wrong for you to think that Everton will get Jack Grealish or be in the conversation to get him. I actually see Everton as a team that actually will be competitive this season. I genuinely think that, and you know how I feel about Everton, but I genuinely think that they will be at the table for a number of good players, and I genuinely think they'll be at the table for a player of that ability to take them onto a next level. As much as anybody thinks about David Moyes has already put a trophy on the cabinet for West Ham. He's got them playing the best football of the last 15, 20 years of their club's history. He is a player that will try and rejuvenate Everton Football Club into the new stadium. There is no doubt about it. Getting, I think it's Barry from Villarreal, the young striker that's come in today and signed. You know what? It's really interesting. Like, and it's weird that I'm even talking about Everton in a positive light, but we were talking about the stadium today with Liam just earlier, talking about like what that would mean for the club.
Yeah,
and I looked at Barry, his promotional shots. And they're in the changing rooms, and you look at that changing room, you're thinking, that's a nice changing room. Yeah. That's it, and it's little things like that. Mainly nothing to us. We might discard it, but actually, for a player coming into a brand new changing, that changing room looked like Wembley. That changing room, like with a circular, with a big sign up above him, and he's doing the promotion with a shirt. And you look at that, you're thinking, imagine Newcastle players or players that are linked with Newcastle coming into a moment like that, and they're thinking, this club's going places. Even if it was a training ground that had that sort of brand new training ground that had that feeling, it would still be enough. And I just think that's going to be a pull for a lot of players coming into state-of-the-art training ground, state-of-the-art stadium, brand new stadium. And you think, they could attract some players into that club this summer.
Pete, you know what? You're absolutely spot on. There's going to be a buzz. There's going to be a buzz around the fact they're moving to that new stadium. And like you say, everybody in the chat, we can relate to it. If you're, I mean, who's put it in the chat there? I think it was Claire. Claire G said something like, who's going to be able to afford Jack Grealish's wage? Yeah, Claire G. Will Grealish drop his wage? This is the key, Claire, because if he goes on loan to somebody, he doesn't have to drop his wage. You'll still get paid the exact same wage. It'll just be that Everton will pay a percentage of it. And you're right, Pete. Revert it back to ourselves. If I had the opportunity, Chris, you can make a transfer and work. Go and work for this company and look at the office. And the office is brand new, brand spanking new. And you go and get to play first team football every week. And you're still getting paid the same. You'd snap it up.
Absolutely.
We're not going to send it to the Johnny journalists, Chris. They'd work you too hard.
Yeah, he was.
Absolutely, but yeah, that's one I think we hopefully can brush to the side with regards to that. Interesting. I want to get your thoughts on this, and we're kind of like reverting back through, but I'm mindful that we didn't get our opinions on this conversation with regards to Sean Longstaff. My question to you and people in the chat is: what is an acceptable fee that you would accept for Sean Longstaff? Because it's very clear that the third bid being rejected by Newcastle United, that 10+2 clearly isn't enough. So for you, as Newcastle United fans, Chris, Daz, what is the figure that you think will be the magic figure that sells Sean Longstaff to Leeds? And I was about to say, potentially Everton, because Everton were interested in him, but they maybe come to the table. So with either club, Leeds will put at the forefront because I've had 3 bids. What do you think is the figure?
For me, and really quickly, Iniesta said 12 million was reasonable. I would have took that bid, I'll be honest. I think the magic figure is what Stephen Adams is saying, and to coin a phrase, I think it's 15 million. I think that's the magic figure to get Newcastle to sell. I don't think they'll be far off. And let's be honest, we know this is the third bid. It can't be that far away. It can't be that far away. It really can't. For me, I think 15 million is a fair fee. And it does wonders for us in terms of PSR, which we keep banging on about. 15 million, if you times that roughly by 5, that's 75 million. It frees up, and that's huge for Newcastle United. And if Sean Longstaff wants to leave, as much as Liam was saying, you know, it makes sense. It makes sense for Newcastle, makes sense for the buying club, makes sense for Sean Longstaff. For me, get it done. And last thing I'll say before I pass to Daz, I think Everton are bonkers not going for Sean Longstaff at that price. I think the bonkers. I genuinely think Sean Longstaff is a very good signing for whoever signs him. I really, really do. 27 years old, loads of room to grow and develop. And if he plays week in, week out, he's a good player. We've seen it. Go on, Dad.
Why are you always trying to flog someone to Everton? Some inclination. You're always Everton. Like why didn't you talk about when Green? Why didn't you talk about Forest? You know, it's Everton. Always Everton. I know you're in the heartland of so that's why.
It's the first time, Daz. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. That's a good, you've actually got money now. We could benefit from it. That's a good point. Good point.
Yeah, no. For I think we said in the squad game. I think we said 15 million. Then that would be the price point. Even though I would have taken the 12 million that third bid, because also the story that he can sit out his contract and leave for nothing, but he wants to go again. And also, I'll tell you after the show, lads, but I'm hearing that his head has been turned to go to Leeds now. He's kind of in that mindset. I'll explain it after, but I think he wants to go to Leeds now. He's I won't say anymore, but that's
in the no Daz. In the no Daz.
No, just I'm never in the know, but just one little thing.
Oh. Okay. Good man.
I still expect Leeds.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'll be honest with you. I don't care where it goes. I just want the money.
No. Yeah, just want the money. Just want the money.
Give me the money.
Is 15 million your sweet spot, Pete?
Yeah, 15. I'd have taken 10+2, but you know. Actually, I think I'm glad you mentioned it. I actually like the fact that we rejected this third bid.
I do.
And I'll tell you why. I like it because we might well have taken 10+2, but what this shows is that we're not going to be pushovers. I like that we're being difficult, because how many clubs have been difficult with Newcastle United with saying an acceptable fee, but not enough. Want more. So why can't we be, even though it's Sean Longstaff, and all due respect, and it's not 40-50 million pound bids, but what it's showing is that we're not going to be pushovers, that we're going to ask for that little bit more. If we have a price point that we want to keep to it, I think the price point is 15 million. Personally, I've always kind of had that in my mind. More recently, I think in January when we had the conversation, I think me and you, Chris, we said between 17 and 20. And at that point, he had been playing a little bit more football. But the back end of the season, he hasn't really kicked a ball, and he's been sixth choice. So for me, I think the price point has come down. But I still think with the ability that he has, he is definitely a 15 million pound player because of the likes of Skip and Winks for what they've gone for. You mentioned that earlier in the show, Chris. So for me, the price point is 15 million. I think I like the fact that Newcastle have been hard hard to deal with, and they've made it difficult, and they've tried to go, you know what, if you want him, you're going to have to pay a little bit more. And it may well be because Everton have a little bit more money.
Yeah.
They might be interested. And so could it be potentially creating a bidding war, which so many clubs do with us? So I feel like we're doing a little bit back to them. We're giving them a little bit back. We're going, hold on, we're not going to be pushovers. Let's create a bit of a bidding war for him. And it could well be the case. So I hope that is the case. But I like the fact that we've done that. So someone will come back in, boys. Whether it's Leeds or somebody else, someone will come back in with more money. They will. They just will.
Let's say there was two clubs, right? And there was a small bit of a bidding war because he could sit it out and just sit and walk for free next season. At the end of the season, should you not gonna, because of his services, or should you not gonna let him give him the kind of refusal as well? I think he might have earned that, even if it was like $1 million in the difference, let's say, of the bids. Surely you'd kind of take his, because of who he is and what he's done for us, and he's come through the youth system as well. I think that might come into it as well, if there is two clubs or multiple clubs in.
So let's wait and see. Boys, any questions in the chat? Anything that we can go through? I think we're definitely coming towards the end now.
Do you know what? I don't normally do this, but credit where credit is due, and I'm interested to hear your boys' thoughts on this. And I started this purposely. What were your thoughts when you heard about Elanga going to Sunderland for 18 million? The Clon lads put their handy player. I have to say, when I saw the price and I saw that Sunderland had managed to nab him, I thought, got to say that I think that's a good deal. Really do, especially at that price, 18 million. Do you boys see that earlier?
Yeah, gone down.
It's a good deal, isn't it?
Yeah, I saw the plane. When I saw the plane, I saw that plane.
Oh, the plane. The plane. The plane.
The planes. I told you.
I know.
People's like, I told you.
Says the man who had a video of the plane yesterday. But
I did that for you guys. I did that not for me.
That was for you. It wasn't for me.
Oh God! When you're in holidays, you're gonna send you nothing but planes.
My
Please, we're playing every 3 hours. That'll out to ruin your holiday. But yeah, no, it's a good signing for Sunderland. You know, and they're starting to bring in a few players that they need to, because it's a big step up for them, as every other club has found when they've come up now as well. So, look, they'll give it a go.
Yeah,
Pete, that's been their most impressive deal that I've seen them do this summer.
Yes,
and the reason being is because I think that deal is someone that's Premier League proven. Has played well. Here he is. Hey, Wolfie, come on, man.
Would you take Grealish? Would you take Grealish, Wolfie? We're trying to offload him earlier. Would you take him?
Interesting. Let's wait and see how he responds.
On loan, but
yeah. For me, I think Elanga is their most impressive player because he's a Premier League proven player. He is a top player, and he's got a little bit of inexperience. He's a little bit younger, but I think playing for Sunderland, I think he would do a good job. I'll be honest with you, they spent a lot of money on other players I've not necessarily been impressed with. I'm not looking at the other players that they've signed and going, yeah, they're going to turn the needle. For me, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking they're still going to be going down at the end of the season, in my opinion. Like, from the players that they've signed, they've spent quite a lot of money. One thing I'll say with Newcastle fans is we look at players being signed and we go, oh, they're signing this, they're signing that. They need a brand new team. Their team that went up is not good enough to stay in the Premier League. They have to revamp their whole team to be able to even stand a remote chance of staying up. So, of course, they're going to sign a lot of players. And, of course, their fans are going to be happy with that. But let's not forget, the players that we need to sign are immense quality that are going to turn the needle from, Europa League to Champions League to being able to withstand 4 competitions that we're going to be fighting for. They're just purely going to be wanting to stay in the Premier League. Like they're on a different. We're in a different stratosphere to Sunderland, and we have to remember that as a fan base. We get really kind of bogged down with, oh, they're signing players and we're not, but we need far less than they do. They'll be signing players up until deadline day. They'll be looking at whatever deals are coming about, but so are we. And it was an interesting point that you made, I think, Daz, with regards to the deals and what might come about. I think it was Daz. I can't remember if Daz or Chris. I can't remember either one of you. But you mentioned about the potential deals that may well come about. I think Chris, you were talking about Grealish, but I think that would be the same with Newcastle United. I think Newcastle United. I'm so glad that Liam said he would like to think that we need 6 players, because I think we are going to sign 6 players. And I think we will, two of those deals, in my opinion, will be deals that we wait for the market to open before we act. The market will open, and there'll be players that will be available that we will take advantage of. Wolfie, you're going to end up pissing off Newcastle fans even more than you have. Because when you're talking lies, when you start lying about things, you're making yourself look worse, Wolfie, and you're embarrassing yourself here because you know it's not true. So just stop. I know you've been crying and you're a little bit upset, and you've been in the corner for a few days over Elanga.
He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing.
He's about to be announced, and you're hurting, and I feel it. But look, you're going to sign a player. You'll be happy. You'll move on. And so will we. But no need to throw shade at us in your worst moment. Come on. Be graceful. Be humble. Come on, man.
Couple of things I want to bring up, boys. Palace in the mud. Yeah, Palace in the mud after that Leon announcement. Couple of things to mention. So Tom Dixon says, and I was surprised when I saw this, and maybe a little bit disappointed as well. 2 of Newcastle's Premier League fixtures in August have been rearranged for TV. The home game against Liverpool will now take place on Monday, the 25th of August at 8 p.m. And also, Tom says the away game against Leeds will take place on Saturday, the 30th of August, our summer's birthday, at 5:30 p.m. So two fixture changes there. I'll be honest, boys, just very quickly, when I saw this one particularly, it did disappoint me a little bit because obviously, I'm not a big fan of Monday night games, but I'll be honest, I did actually think, do you know what? You know the score, don't you, boys? Night games under the floodlights, first home game of the season. Is that gonna? Did that give you a little bit of confidence? Obviously, there's going to be a lot of emotion around obviously Diogo Jota. I'm sure that will get mentioned on the night, and we're yet to see whether Newcastle do any any amendments towards him. But did that have any significance to you boys when you saw that game had changed to an evening game? Because I must admit, it did excite me a little bit from a footballing point of view. But did you boys feel the same?
For me personally, I am absolutely baffled to see that is a Monday night. For me, Newcastle United against Liverpool is an absolute Super Sunday football match. That should be at the height of Premier League football, which is always Super Sundays are always kind of your height of Premier League football. It always is, because that's the one that everyone looks at. For me, if you're going to put Newcastle United against Liverpool, it has to be on a Super Sunday. And for the points that you've just mentioned, Chris, with the Diogo Jota, Newcastle United are clearly going to do something to pay their respects for him, and I think that needed to be on primetime TV. 8 o'clock on a Monday night is not primetime TV. It's just not for football anyway. And I'm disappointed of the Premier League. I always am. I'm not going to lie. Like, I'm disappointed that that's not Super Sunday, because that is a Super Sunday worthy game. And yeah, I think it should have been given more respect for the historic nature of the fixture, but also Diogo Jota and what we are bound to do in respect for him. So that was kind of my initial thought with that.
Dazzler?
I didn't have an awful lot of time to think about it, because when it came out, I was busy. But I think, yeah, look, Liverpool are the first game of the season, and how it kicks off the whole Premier League season, and that's going to be a massive tribute to Diogo Jota. But yeah, I think we'll do something as well. And I think that the build up towards it, as well as looking at the first games, you know how this like 6:30 it'll start and it'll be all the kind of build up towards that as well. So it is what it is. I think there's so many games we just get on with it, I guess. I know a lot of the Irish Mags lads that they're kind of pissed off because they were planning on that banking on it being the Sunday, so they'd gotten provisionally and got flights before they got tickets. They had flights arranged, so it's kind of thrown a spanner in the works there. But a gamble you take, I guess.
Yeah, and I totally get what you two boys have said. I don't know. For me, I thought in terms of the match itself, I felt like this played into our hands a little bit, because first home game of the season, no doubt a lot of Geordies will be logging off early, getting to the pub at like 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon. I think it plays into our hands. I'll be honest, I really do. First home game of the season, and I just think I think it plays into Newcastle's hands. I mean, we'll see what happens, obviously, but. I agree with what you're saying, though, Pete. You know, it does strike you as a Super Sunday game, doesn't it? But then I suppose Sky like to big up their Monday night football, don't they? And we all know, you know, that it's all centered around Carragher and Neville. And I'm sure Carragher and Neville will be in the studio talking about the game, and obviously Diogo Jota and stuff like that before it. So maybe that was their thinking. I don't know.
There's more match points this season. They've been promoting for the last 4 months how this season there's going to be more games on TV than any other. There's like a crazy amount more games that there's going to be on TV than any other. They could have found a better timestamp for this match on a Monday night, 8 o'clock. They could have. They just could have. Like whatever's on a Sunday, I don't even know what even is the Super Sunday the day before this game. But whatever there is, there's at least one of those games that could well have been swapped for Newcastle United against Liverpool. Newcastle United against Liverpool is one of the most heritage Premier League games that's out there. One of the most heritage games that's out there. How can you not, especially with Newcastle being where they are now, how can you not put that in its best timestamp possible? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I get you.
Super chat lads as well. Come from Nobby Clark. Is that where you're going next, Chris? Sorry.
I'm just gonna just do. I was just gonna say, Daz, do the 2 super chats, and we'll save the other questions. Sorry if we haven't gone to it, but we'll save the other questions for tomorrow night's show, which we might talk about. Sorry, that's go on, mate.
Nobby has just come in. Just to clarify for Wolfie, he says Derby are bigger than Forest. How'd you like that?
Oh, Nobby.
How'd you like that?
You're throwing a bomb in there right now. Throwing a bomb in there.
Maybe not when Rooney was there. Not when Rooney was there. Not so much. And the next one comes from Genius to Wijnaldum, and he says, "Sell or keep Pope for you out of contract in 2026." What do you think, boys?
Keep all day, even if it goes for free. Keep him.
Yeah, I'm doing a Keith roll here. I'm kind of on both sides. I want to keep him long term. If we give him a new contract, keep him. I'm happy, very very happy. But equally, if you were to tell me that, you know, a Leeds or somebody like that were going to come in and give us an Everton, maybe. I mean, they won't. But you know, like if somebody was to come in and come in with like a 15, 20 million, I mean, that'd be great, wouldn't it? But you know, like a 15 million bid cash deal for Nick Pope, and the fact that we've got like 47 goalkeepers, I wouldn't lose any sleep if he left. But at the same time, if I had to choose which side to be on, I would want to keep him. I think we should keep him because I think he'd be a very good number two going forward. And apparently he doesn't want to leave. So I personally would have no problem keeping him. I think there's other goalkeepers that we should be getting rid of, notably John Ruddy, but he's not going anywhere. So yeah, I could see both sides, but I'd probably edge on the side of keeping him. What about you, Daz?
For me, I'm keeping Popey. We're going to definitely sign Trafford eventually. We'll work that out. But I'd sell Dubravka maybe back to if a deal could be resurrected somewhere in Saudi. Sorry,
maybe sell with Dubravka.
Oh no, I would sell Dubravka. So, yeah, sorry. Did I say maybe? Sell Dubravka.
I've got his bags packed next to my bags.
You've got his jersey. You picked up his jersey in the club shop that time. And yeah, Councillor Ruddy is still there. They all have a role, of course. as we talked about yesterday.
Ooh. Absolutely.
That was Super Chats, boys.
Guys, I think we'll leave it there. We've had a great show. Liam was a superb guest. If anyone's just joined us now, please go back for the first hour and
Like
watch the conversation with Liam. No, Dad was here. You got a big chunk of that conversation for sure. But go back and watch the conversation with Liam. There'll be some Mythbusters in there, some little bit of information that he knows. And again, there'll be some great discussion from us all on here as well. Always love the chat. The chat, you are amazing people. Just make sure if you're new to the channel or you just joined later on, that you drop that like just as you're about to leave. We will be back maybe sooner than you think. We will hold on because I've not had a message back, so I don't want to give anything away just in case it doesn't happen. But we are planning potentially for a show tomorrow night, so keep your eyes peeled on all things Loaded Mag on all platforms. That is for sure.
Rightio, that is it. We play out with the Radiator Shed. Remember, the link is in the description below. It does say 20%, but screw that. You can get 30% off. Talk to Russ for all your radiator needs. Talk to you later. Maybe tomorrow.